Hi there. Thanks for joining me on Gaps and Gains. I'm Peter K. de Villiers, Blind Spot Works, and in these episodes I just address some questions that I get during the week and that I see online, and then try and share answers and suggestions with you, and we can both learn together. So today's questions are all sort of linked, but I'll deal with them individually. But they're all very much about the inquiry process and initial response and that side of things. So let's just get straight into it. So question one is, we get a good number of inquiries in our business, but often by the time we get to respond to them, they've already gone elsewhere. How can we fix this? So this is unfortunately a very, very common problem in service-based businesses. Because generally people are busy, and especially in smaller businesses, the people are busy on the tools, with clients, on site, and therefore things go to voicemail. And that causes different issues. But the way to fix it, so first is to accept that this problem is there, that if I ring you and you don't answer, I'm ringing the next person. Be it a Google search or an AI search that gives me a list of people to get in touch with, I'm going to ring the next person and not wait around. So you want to deal with that issue first. Now, the most important thing is that there is an immediate response. Now, if someone fills in a form online, an inquiry form, then it's very simple to have an immediate response from automation. You can easily just have, depending on what information you gather from them when they make that inquiry on your website, you can send them an email immediately saying, hey, we got your inquiry, and someone will deal with it and go from there. If it's phone, then the important thing is that the phone is answered in as few rings as possible. Even if you don't solve their problem there and then, just schedule a longer conversation if you're picking up the phone and you're really busy. But of course you can use automation and AI. You can have an AI receptionist that answers the phone, takes their details, the general information about their query, and depending on your business can do a lot more, can book times in the diary to speak to someone, or for a showroom visit or a site visit, depending on how you set that up. But that can really solve that problem for you, because the reality is people just want their query acknowledged and want to know what the next step is. They don't expect the problem necessarily to be solved immediately. Now, if you're a locksmith, for example, and I'm standing outside my house and I'm locked out and you can't come to me in short order, I am going to ring someone else, because in that scenario, you getting back to me 2 hours later and sending me an email saying you'll get back to me 2 hours later only confirms to me that I need to find someone else, because I'm not going to stand outside my house waiting for 2 hours. But the majority of businesses are not like that. So you can just acknowledge the query and tell that prospect what's going to happen next. Be that with voice AI, web chat, which again can be AI or human managed, and then email as well. And it's really just a case of acknowledging the inquiry and making clear to them what's going to happen next. And then the critical bit is make sure that what you said will happen next is the thing that happened next, because that's where trust is built and very easily destroyed. So looking at question 2, what does a well-designed inquiry process look like from first contact to a booked job? So I know that this is a trades business, and you obviously want, like I said in the previous one, there's that first acknowledgement. So ideally have the phone answered by one of your team or the AI. I remember when I worked as an electrician, we were very busy, very small team, and I'd be standing there wiring up a fuse board with an earpiece in, and I'll be answering the phone and having conversations while trying to do the work, and it's not an ideal scenario. So with the technology that's available now, you can really get that first inquiry acknowledged, and then make sure that that contact and their details, be that when it's over the phone, via AI, your web chat, the forms on your website, however it is added to your CRM system. Automated acknowledgement goes out immediately that, hey, great that you got in touch. And then obviously it depends on if you did speak to them. Route A happens. If nobody has spoken to them yet and it's automated, route B happens. So you've now made a promise that, okay, we'll get back to you within an hour. Make sure that you get back to them within an hour. And then you have that conversation. And then it's really important that at the end of that conversation, you set out the expectation again. At every step of this, you have to build the next expectation. So let's say, for instance, you've had the call and they want you to come round for a quote. So then you agree with them the date and time of the quote to go for a visit. So at that point, you hang up the phone, you update the CRM, and they get an email confirming what you've just discussed, what the quote is for, and when you'll be round to do that. And then you want to make sure that they get two things in the time leading up to the quote. The one is a couple of days before the date that you agreed, the day before, the morning of, automated email goes out just to say, hey, look forward to seeing you, and confirmation, yes, we're still coming on Friday, sort of the transactional side of it. But at the same time, in the background, you have an automated system that sends them emails that educate them on your business. Why should they use you? What can they expect when they use you? What can they expect from the quoting process and the process thereafter? So you educate them on how your business works, and that makes them feel really calm, and it acknowledges and it answers questions. It might also generate questions. So you can send them in one of those emails an FAQ sheet of the top 10 questions that you get that's really good for them to think about before you come out to do the quote. And that setup can work really well so that both of you are then really prepared for the conversation that you're going to have. And then on the day, of course, you turn up, you do the quote, you're professional. And then once that's done, you go and update the system again. And the system will then automatically send out to them, hey, good to meet you, good to see you, glad we discussed the details. And if you then say you'll have a quote within 48 hours, it's then your responsibility, it's the business's responsibility to make sure that they have their quote within 48 hours. So that then goes out, and you also say that you'll have the quote within 48 hours and someone will then call you to discuss further. So then the quote goes out 48 hours later and someone rings them up to discuss further. And then you've got the outcome that you then deal with. It's like, okay, there's amendments, there's conversation around it. But at the same time as all of that is happening, and then you have your conversation that leads to the job, you still have automated emails going out, reassuring them, educating them, and delighting them, and showing why you're the right person for them to do this job with, to give this project to, and to work with. So I hope that's helpful. The key thing I would say there is that you make sure there's constant communication throughout. So we're going through the process of selling our house at the moment and buying a new house. And the difference in experience with the different estate agents and with a solicitor and the mortgage company and everything. So with the solicitor, as seems to just be the norm, and it's infuriating, if you don't ask them for an update, you don't get an update. They seem to be using no modern technology as far as I can work out. Everything's still done by paper, the odd email here and there. Whereas on the other hand, our mortgage company has been great, because the moment our mortgage broker submitted our mortgage application, got an email and a text message saying, hey, the application has been submitted, it'll be processed in the next 5 days. And then as soon as the survey was booked in on the property we're buying, got a text message and an email saying the survey's been booked in for the following week, Wednesday. And then come the Wednesday, got a message saying, we've received the survey report back, this will be processed into your application. And then not long after that, we got a text message and an email saying, hey, your mortgage application has been approved, the offer is made, it's in the post to you and your solicitor. So whereas with the solicitor and the estate agents, the whole process is a bit opaque, and it's not that they don't even tell you these are the 10 things that need to happen, it's just you're a bit in the dark. Whereas with a mortgage company, we know exactly where we are, what step is next, and what has been done. So that's the thing you want to keep in mind here, is to not let your prospect and or customer wonder about what's happening next and what's going to happen, if anything, and where you are in the process. Moving on to the next one, how can I use the inquiry stage to set up the rest of the client relationship for success? So I've mentioned some of this already, but that's really I describe it almost like a background radiation. You've got the inquiry process going on, the things that need to happen. You need to call them, you need to see them, you need to provide a quote, you need to agree what work is going to happen. But in the background, fully automated, there is a process that can educate and delight them and show them, teach them about your business. They don't know anything about your business, and teach them about how you work, how happy your other customers are, with testimonials and case studies, whatever you can there, and set those up so that they can get this impression of your business and they can learn about your business. Because you'd be surprised how few businesses actually do any of this. And therefore, if you just do a little bit of it to get started, you're ahead of the game. And if they've inquired with 3 different companies, you will stand out because of your level of communication and additional information you provide and questions you answer before they've even asked them, and you raising points that they might be concerned about before they do. So that's really how you can look at it and say, okay, there's the transactional things that need to happen. I need to speak to them. I need to go and do the quote. I need to provide them the quote. And we have to have a sales conversation. But supporting all of that in the background is the automated communication that just teaches them about your business, about you, about your team, about how you work and how you don't work, and the like. So I'd say that's how you can really use the inquiry stage to strengthen that relationship even before you start doing the work. Moving on to the next question, how can I set up an automated initial response without it feeling automated? I don't think you should try and hide the fact that things are automated. So in what I've just described with our mortgage company, I know that there's a person updating the system to say survey completed or survey booked and whatever, but I'm under no illusion that that person then penned me, sat and typed out an individual email to me. And that's perfectly fine, because the thing that's important is that I get the information. I get told that things have been updated. I get told that the thing is in process. So it's not really a case of it shouldn't feel automated. And you can play with it, and you can just say completely transparently when that automated response comes in. You can create a character that then say, hey, this is automated. You and I both know it. The team's busy, but someone will get back to you within an hour. Here's some additional information you can read in the meantime. And people are happy with that. That's perfectly fine. Don't try and hide the fact that it's automated, especially now with AI. So you can have a phone answered by AI. The AI can ask them questions and provide them with answers based on your business. But you shouldn't try and pretend that that's a real person, because people will pick up that it's not a real person, and then they feel, well, if you try and lie or hoodwink me in the first contact that I have with your business, that doesn't set up much of a good relationship from there on. So there's an awful lot you can do, but don't try and hide the fact that it's automated. Almost be transparent about it and just say, hey, it's 2026. I can send you an automated confirmation, but a real human being will be in touch in the next hour, whatever that is. And the same when it's chat on a website, don't pretend that it's a real person if it's not. because it's just frustrating. If it's clear that this is an AI agent and it's a support agent, and you can be transparent when the AI agent answers the phone, you can set it up that it says, hey, I'm Mike, an AI assistant here at your business. I'm here to help you with this initial inquiry, and then I'll pass you on to one of the real human beings. So don't try and hide it, but embrace it and make it authentic to your business. But like I say, don't try and fool people, because it doesn't work, and then you've started off on a bad point with that relationship immediately. Last question for today. How does an inquiry process for a services business compare without and with automation? So without, it's someone rings up and the phone doesn't get answered and they leave a voicemail. Possibly lots of people don't leave a voicemail. They're just on to ringing the next person, and by the time you get round to it, you've lost the business. If you do answer the phone, you're in a van, you're on site, whatever you're doing, you scribble down the details, and then maybe 6 o'clock the evening when you're back at home or in the office or back in the van, then you try and ring them back, have that conversation, and by that time it's too long, unless you've pre-agreed it. And then nothing happens until you ring them again, or they ring you, or you email them and they email them, and there's just these gaps, these holes the whole time. Like my experience with solicitors and estate agents recently, where it's just, I don't know, 4 or 5 days go by, we've got a deadline when we would like to move, and okay, in the last 5 days, has anything happened? Have we moved any closer to our goal? And it's the same for your prospects and your inquiries. Whereas with automation, like I described, you can have these things in place that make sure they know what the process is, even though they've never been anywhere near your business. You can just almost hold their hand in a digital way through the whole process and through that. And it completely changes the inquiry process, not just for them, but for you as well, because you know that it's taken care of. You know that the emails are going out, and you know that they know what's going on, and therefore when you speak to them, it's just a much easier conversation, and it smooths out the whole process. So yeah, it can completely transform your inquiry process if you do it right. And the difference between with automation, without automation, is just two different worlds you can live in. In the one, you're spinning all the plates, and if you don't do it, or one of your team don't, or someone doesn't remember to do it, then it just doesn't happen and the business goes elsewhere. Or you can create this engine that supports the business and that's churning away all the time and helping to win you business. So I hope that's been helpful. Thank you for joining me. Again, I'll be here again next week for another episode of Gaps and Gains. So I'm Pieter from Blindspot Works. Find the gaps, fix the business.